A U.S. district judge in Texas ordered the FDA's approval of the abortion drug mifepristone be suspended. The Justice Department was quick to ask a federal appeals court to put a hold on that order, calling it extraordinary and unprecedented.
Late Wednesday, an appeals court granted the Justice Department's request to put the ruling on hold while it considers the case.
So we want to bring in our medical expert, Dr. Payal Kohli, to talk about the drug and the implications of this recent ruling. Thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
So first, talk about this drug, mifepristone, and what it's approved for by the FDA.
So, as we heard, it's approved for ending a pregnancy in the first 10 weeks of that pregnancy. Been around for over 2 decades, has an impeccable safety record. But there's actually also other indications. So it's also approved for women who miscarry, and then, they don't want to have the surgery to actually empty the uterus, so they can use this medication to do so. And there's a condition called Cushing's syndrome, where you have an excess of cortisol, that this drug is also approved for. Because what this drug does is it actually binds the progesterone receptor, so it can not just regulate our hormones, but also affect our sugar levels and other such things. So some medical indications for this medication as well.
Yeah, and what are the medical implications here if this is taken off the market?
I mean, incredible. This is really unprecedented in the world of medicine, and every doctor is really on the edge of their seat, waiting to see what's going to happen. Because even states like Colorado, where medical abortion is legal, could actually have lack of access to this medication. And we know that mifepristone is actually used in about 50% of terminations of pregnancy. So it's a large proportion of pregnancies that could get affected. And then when you talk about the non-pregnancy implications, such as the ones with Cushing's, how would those patients potentially be affected if access to this drug is limited?
Are there other drugs on the market that are like this?
Well, so that's what's interesting. Where there's a will, there's a way. So if you get rid of this drug for, medical termination of a pregnancy, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology actually has recommended a single drug regimen, and that's called misoprostol. It's usually mifepristone followed by misoprostol, which causes the uterus to expel whatever is in there. But if you just use misoprostol by itself, that is an alternative when mifepristone's not available. So I think there's still going to be people getting medical abortions, even if this drug gets overturned. But then what's going to happen? Are they then going to go after misoprostol? And then that opens that door in the Pandora's box for really going after all the drugs that the FDA feels are safe and efficacious.
A potential domino effect here. And how is the FDA and the AMA responding to this?
I mean, every medical organization has put out a statement, and the American Medical Association is saying that this really flies in the face of science. This is really overturning scientific opinion. The FDA is very concerned that this will undermine their credibility moving forward, not just with lawmakers, but also with drug companies, international organizations. So what exactly their authority will be in terms of saying, yes, we think that people should have access to this drug, it really stands in jeopardy here based on this particular ruling.
You were saying this is used oftentimes for women who miscarry, so they don't have to have the DNC. I know a lot of women do that. What about ectopic pregnancies? Is that used for this, or is that something different?
No, that's different, because that's where the pregnancy actually implants in the fallopian tube rather than in the uterus. So it's in the wrong place. But, having a DNC is a traumatic procedure, especially for a woman who's just lost a pregnancy and miscarried. So this is a way in which she can sort of safely, evacuate her uterus at home rather than having to go through this painful and kind of invasive surgical procedure. So I know we talk about the psychological impacts of using this medication for medical abortions, but in the case of miscarrying, I actually think it spares the woman a lot of psychological trauma, because she can sort of expel the contents of her uterus at home, just like having a period, essentially.
And would your body naturally do that without the drug?
Not always. So sometimes if you retain the pregnancy when you miscarry, that's when it can really lead to complications. And so this kind of helps to sort of safely terminate your pregnancy, knowing that it's not, going to be viable. So I'm really concerned that this has started, a really scary precedent for us in the medical community. What this means for what the FDA says, for what our clinical trials do, the science and the way that we really hang our hat on something being safe and efficacious, and this just getting overturned.
All right, Dr. Kohli, we always appreciate your expertise. Thanks for being here.